set the scene here, because I saw a couple of photos that looks like it was a pretty cool experience over there at EA in Orlando. Again, before we get into the game, sort of how did this all come together?
Yeah, so I live here in Orlando, which is where EA is located. I've been to their studios a good number of times before, but I've never been to a game release. And I've been there a lot of times. Like, man, we really want to do the college football game, just couldn't do it. And this was pretty neat. So it was myself, Andy Staples, Chris Panini, Matt Brown, a couple of Robbie Calland, obviously.
Robbie Calland in the house.
Yeah. And a couple other guys, a lot of dudes who cover video games as well on their channels, and
a lot of nerds.
And do I feel like we are lagging on YouTube as far as best practice compared to some of those dudes. Like they take the YouTube bit pretty serious. It was cool. So like they had all our lockers set up with our where we went to school, and did like a 2-hour presentation. I think the biggest thing that I took away from this is that this is not like Madden reskinned. They didn't pull a couple guys off other video game teams from other sports. Like they didn't pull a guy off the NBA game or college basketball or Madden or whatever. Like, hey, make a college football game. The dudes making this game are like absolute college football sicko nerds. Okay, the stuff that they thought to put in here it's just straight dubs. It's awesome. They wanted to operate with the mantra that like every team is somebody's favorite team, and they really gave it the full treatment. So they got every single fight song. They had incredible attention to detail, with elements like what song is played after certain things happen at certain stadiums and for certain things. Are there certain traditions that can only be unlocked, with certain happenings, right? Maybe we only play this version of this song against a certain opponent, right? We only go with this stripe out formation in our stands as far as fans organizing for this game or that game, whether it's like the Tennessee checkerboard or how Boise does like the triple stripe thing. And what I really got was I felt like at least from the presentations, is that the schools were really in on this. Nice. Once they were allowed to be, every school was like, oh man, awesome. Like they were giving Clemson props for taking like, I don't know, I think it was like 7,000 different photos of their stadium or something like crazy, but they labeled all of them like the exact reference point where each one is. They went and did stadium mapping for pretty much all of the stadiums. They, went to Vancouver and built like a big studio. Actually, this was during COVID to show you how long this game has been in the works, like building like a literal hill for Clemson to mocap running down, right? They built a horse for Renegade and Osceola at Florida State. I just think regardless of what team you're playing with, I think they did a great job of nailing your traditions, like knowing what to ask for, knowing what to look for. That was pretty cool. As far as you got to differentiate it from Madden, and both in terms of like details, but also gameplay, they really did. So I'm super fired up to play it, and actually did get to play it. So
okay, that's the next part. What's you have you've made some cross comments about gamers on this Cover 3 podcast before.
Yeah,
but that is true. But you at a time you liked having the sticks in your hands, so getting to play it. What'd you think of the gameplay?
All right, so it's really different than Madden. Okay, it's, I would say, like higher variance, crazier, but that does kind of reflect what you see in college, right? Mm-hmm. Like we have a much less standardized game compared to our NFL counterparts, and I think it reflects that. I love the run game, by the way. Like the run game makes sense. Their zone blocking is different than their man blocking. If you don't take the appropriate track when you're running zone, you're probably not going to have a successful play. Like you actually have to, much like you got to throw a pass on time, you need to hit your track on time. And if you hit it, you can actually run the ball really effectively. But there is a more strategic element of the run game. Whereas, 10 years ago when we had this, it didn't feel like that. So like that was something I noticed immediately. I also like the option game. Now, instead of a handoff button, you press it to pull, which is, I think, better. And it works better. In the old one, remember how you had to like mash it, hand it off, and it wouldn't always work? This worked. So
for the dive, you had to mash it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I'm going to be pulling like on accident for at least the first 4 or 5 hours I'm playing that game.
Just from habit.
Yeah.
Does it still have your primary and secondary reads marked, or do you have to pick that out?
They are colored. Now this is cool. So they really wanted to, and I'm glad they did this because I think it adds some more fun elements to the game. But they added things that really reflect like where you are in your developmental cycle as a player. So you may think you're some hotshot 5-star freshman, but your experience level and your maturity level, it really does matter, especially where you're playing, right? If I'm going and I'm playing in Death Valley at night, I might be a 5-star freshman. I might have had a pretty nice September, but come October, Death Valley at night, you know what? If I'm playing, especially on like Dynasty Mode, I may not have all of the passing options available to me, right? I may not have 100% of that playbook available. All my routes might be like super shaky, or some might not appear actually, right? There's definitely like the ability to be rattled and having to overcome that, which is, there's more here. They always had like you're tired, right? Fatigue. All video games have that. There's more of that now, right? But it's also like a mental fatigue type thing, which I think matters, and I think it goes to your experience. Because you do see college guys melt down in a way that pro players for the most part don't. But it's not in like a cheesy way, right? Like it's not like, okay, this is not fun because I can't do anything now. But it was that part of it stood out as something like, yeah, that actually, in the effort to reflect what actually happens in college games, that was pretty cool. Let me see comments from the chat. No, read option is not a cheat code, but it felt much better than it used to be. I've known the guy who does playbooks there for a long time, and just from previous trips over there, and they really do feel like they have 134 different ones in there, which is pretty wild. Like, wow. They are adding in the veer and shoot stuff, and talked about how that was a real challenge, to get and to get the game logic to actually understand the nuance and what makes that system work as far as the crazy wide splits, which actually, if you're a gamer and you want to know about that, we actually did a separate video about that on our channel one time as a pullout. But that was neat. And also, they're like, we didn't really like how passing did not reflect sort of the three-dimensional element that is actually on a real field, where the importance of layering the ball over the top, of like over one guy in front of another actually matters. And so that's a quarterback skill set, like as Danny can tell you. It's not all just, hey, here's a laser, here's a laser, here's a laser. That was something they really emphasized as well. I thought was pretty cool. I'm gonna take a sip now. Ask me some questions.
Yeah.
Do you know if linebackers still have better hands than the wide receivers?
Okay, no. So I was trying to just like see like how late can you throw a ball, right? And I was playing on All-American, and I think one on Heisman. They don't pick it off every single time, which I thought was good. I was like, yeah, we see that in college. Like college, there's a lot of like, oh my God, no. And then it's like, okay, well, the guy actually dropped the pick. That I don't think the hands of the defenders in this game are
a middle linebacker who can jump 10 feet in the air with amazing hands. Yeah. So I thought that was, I mean, the gameplay is a hell of a lot better than it was if you're somebody who still has your old system and has still been running back the game from a decade ago. Okay. Danny or Tom, before we get some chat questions, anything else that stands out to you?
Well, I was curious, how do they incorporate NIL, if at all?
So they did. Now you got to remember, most of this game was developed before like the Tennessee decision came out, and before all these subsequent court decisions and settlements and rulings. But there is an NIL element in there. It's basically like your brand exposure rating. if because of course NIL is all about brand exposure. That kind of makes sense in terms of, hey, what are schools going to be cool with allowing like signing up for? They're probably not going to be cool with like, all right, here's this guy's salary and this guy's salary, even though that we know that's really how it works. The schools still want to kind of keep that image of these guys aren't just paid by their collectives like employees. But it does matter for sure. There are certain players where NIL especially in Dynasty and also in Road to Glory, it matters a whole lot for you. It can also get you in trouble. Like in Road to Glory, if you spend all of your time working out and doing NIL and you don't do any academic work, then you actually do run the risk of becoming academically ineligible.
What?
Yes. Yeah. So you got to balance your time. They brought in coaches and players to talk about things like that. But I was pretty impressed with that part of it relative to what it could be at the time that it was being developed. We'll have to see how it evolves in next year's game based on subsequent court decisions and settlements and whatnot. So I'm excited about that. Dynasty is pretty cool. Like you can tell the level of like detail and just how big of college ball nerds these guys are with like the people they consulted with and like just the little things about like college football. They put blue chip ratio in there, which is pretty cool. I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, whoa, all right, that's awesome. Dynasty looks like it's a whole lot of fun. I think it's going to be harder to win a natty with like Ohio by year 3.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because of the level of prospect that a school like that can get. If you're going to do something that wild, I think it's harder to do so. And it's going to take longer, which actually makes it more of an accomplishment, right? It's like, hey, look, I played till season 14 or whatever, and I was finally able to slowly upgrade the level of prospect that my school can sign. And that's something I'm looking forward to playing with quite a bit. I was never a big Road to Glory guy. So like, I never played it on the old one. I didn't like it. I didn't really care about it. I played Dynasty a lot. So
can you edit conferences?
You can edit conferences. Yes. You can edit
I can put Florida State in the Big Ten.
Florida State in the Big
Ten. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Okay. That actually, I think, was the example that was shown of how you can edit conferences. So there again, these guys are pretty big college ball nerds over there. And I think that's what we want. We just want the Madden team to kind of half-ass make a college game. You could bring back the Big East if you wanted to. You can edit future schedules. You could not do the create a player thing and
throw them in there and recruit the hell out of them and then get them on your squad.
Well, that, and you can't do like there are certain guys who have not opted into the game that you can't do. So that's obviously.
So I can't put Arch Manning in the game.
Correct.
And have him transfer.
You cannot create Arch Manning.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see.
All right.
So from what you've seen or what you saw or were told, like how intensive is the recruiting?
Yeah.
Because I remember that was one thing that for me kind of always in Dynasty Mode annoyed me a little bit it was like the recruiting took up too much time, whereas I just kind of wanted to get back to playing the game. So do you have any idea of what that's going to look like in the new version?
I think it's still going to be pretty intensive, man. Honestly, granted, I guess you could just sim it and deal with what you got, but you may not get, quite as good of players.
The Lincoln Riley model.
You said it, not me. I'm taking enough USC heat recently. They with your coach tracks, you can choose to be either a tactician, recruiter, or like motivator developer. And you have to decide, like, do I want my staff to have good balance in these areas, or do I want to just go all in on like recruiting only, or tactician only, or whatever. And that is, you can't be the best at all things, at least not until way, way deep in the Dynasty setting, which is, again, like, I don't know, if I'm buying a game, I'd like to be able to feel like there are still parts to unlock later on, right? As opposed to just, I beat it in 4 seasons.
In the old game, when you would allocate your points, it felt like your NIL budget. There was a way. I mean, there was one era of the game where you actually had to specifically sell certain points. But in NCAA 14, if I remember correctly, you just had points. You had to allocate them to each different recruit, and that sure felt like whether it's resources, whether it's actual investment, that sort of felt a little bit like the modern recruiting. Does it check out kind of similar now?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different areas that certain recruits are going to care about. They put pipelines in there to where it makes sense. Like, if I'm USC, I may not be able to pull quite as many kids from Florida. They did a lot of research into what types of player in terms of position and skill level come from certain areas in the country. So it may be more, disproportionately more good defensive linemen from the Carolinas than you might think, right? Maybe a lot of really good DBs from the state of Florida, maybe some more good linemen from the Midwest, maybe some California quarterbacks, things like that, which will impact how you build your dynasty, which is, solid.
Did they still have the coaching carousel?
I didn't ask about that, but you can definitely get fired, obviously.
So I'm like when 14 was the last year was out. It's you'd have one good year at Miami of Ohio, and then all of a sudden, Florida State's offering you their job, and it was just it's that was always kind of weird to me.
I don't think that I really think that they made an effort to make it more realistic. They also worked with some of the guys who continued to evolve and make the game. We had all these communities. Some of those guys ended up getting hired on the team, which is, again, trying to reach out to show the people that actually played the game and enjoy the game and the sport are making this, because they didn't want to make it just a Madden reskin. I've got 3 pages of notes double-sided, so I took a lot.
All right, what about let's do some funny ones.
Yeah.
Did they get the rights to Enter Sandman?
They should get
so.
to perform it if they did.
There was a big I was taking notes fast, but there were a lot of songs that they did try to license. There were a couple they didn't get.
Well, yeah, that was the other one. Mr. Brightside at Michigan, Jump Around at Wisconsin, Jump Around being after the third quarter. That seems to line up with the when this happens,
right?
This happens. And I imagine House of Pain is not overly litigious.
Based on how Lars Ulrich and Metallica responded to Napster back in the day, I'm gonna bet they don't have the rights to Enter Sandman for that.
They show them all jumping, but then
so we just need to get Chip in there going doom 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 doom.
Hey, listen, that will hold up in court. Okay, that will hold up in court that it is not Enter Sandman. So
the one, he was talking pretty fast. They did get, I think they got Zombie Nation, but did not get Sandstorm, or they got Sandstorm, but did not get Zombie Nation. I was writing really fast at that time. I don't know if they got Neck. I didn't ask about that one. The thing is, if you got Neck, do you get the?
Do you get the whole every single lyric in there? Because we're gonna have to put that MA rating on the game.
Yeah. Parental advisory on the most anticipated sports video game launch in 20 years. All right.
They have the new lighting system that a lot of stadiums have when they turn out the lights. The LED lights go out and they had that.
That's pretty cool.
Let's see. How does gameplay and presentation feel to you as someone who isn't an everyday player or gamer?
If you are somebody who kept playing the old game, it just is so much more smooth and more intuitive than it used to be. I think the run game part is pretty big. I like the ability to switch to the guy nearest the ball to be able to make more user catches and whatnot, which is nice. To be able to flip the action stick there. That's pretty solid. I have played some Madden, so not a ton, but a couple of my buddies have it, so I've played with them there on that. Granted, guys, technology's come a long way in 10 years. So if it didn't feel better, I think we'd have a lot of complaints, but I think they cashed it in pretty good. Sorry, I did not do a lot of Road to Glory.
Jackson, how is the passing component of RPOs?
It's pretty good, man. It's like you would think it is, right? You're not really getting 4 options that you can read out, right? You're really it's give, throw, or if you can pull it down and run with it, obviously.
They also like it would be for a true freshman who's out there just running RPOs. Yeah. When Avery Johnson took the field for Kansas State as a true freshman, it is that playbook that they hemmed down for him to go out and be effective.
Another thing I noticed is that the drop, Danny, you'll like this. The drop backs are more realistic. So nobody sprints to the back of their drop and stands there for 5 seconds. You actually drop back on a pass like you would drop back, which is, hurry, but not frantic on your drop, which makes a little more sense so that you are kind of more in concert with the offensive lineman in the pass protection. which I liked. All right, if you're a real nerd, here's some of the stuff I think will get you. No X factors, no guarantees, special mental abilities, special physical abilities. Guys who definitely have the ability, as we talked about, like play a little bit better relative to some other dudes if they're on the road, because again, handling the crowd, handling the pressure situations. You will see this in kicking, by the way, for sure.
Mhm.
Like if you get some Mac kicker who's a freshman going down to Alabama, that is going to be tough. I did not like the new kicking controls at first, and then because I shanked like 2 punts and just like missed an extra point. But
golf course flashbacks while you're out there. Just
after about 3 games, I got it. So, yeah, dude, seriously, that was pretty solid. Is the kneel down in the playbook for Miami? That's awesome. Good question there. So yeah, no X factors, no guarantees on those, which I think is kind of nice. Yeah, Jackson, I did punt. Yeah, I don't know. Should I not punt?
No, punting is winning. Okay, play field position. Let's go.
Dude, Michigan State. I was Utah. Michigan State was killing me on Heisman. So
Sparty, take the season over. Sparty's good.
Childs is pretty good in this game.
Ooh.
Can Clemson use the
By the way,
portal?
North Carolina is way better than I thought they'd be. I was scrolling through the menu. What? That's okay. So Jordan Mafia is
that checks out. It's a great in a video game. Great.
Yes.
In theory. Great before mid-October.
Yeah, exactly.
Any Danny, Tom, anything else, or Tommy or Bud?
I know that they have. I mean, we've heard about it. They've got like multiple broadcast options. Like they're doing it. Like you've got the big game where you're gonna have Fowler and Herbie, and they have other broadcasts.
Yep.
So like, if I'm playing as Toledo, what am I going to be getting as calling my games? Who's calling the games?
Probably not Herbie and Fowler, unless you take Toledo to the playoff. I guess.
Which I will.
Fowler actually was there. We talked to him for a little bit. He said he recorded 115 hours of audio. And I'm like, oh my God, this is
I believe it.
That's a lot of audio, man.
That's like 62-hour sessions, probably over the course of a year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fowler asking, why do you need me to record the line in Virginia Tech are SEC champions? What's going on there?
Weather matters too.
Like
legitimately.
Big 10.
Yeah, yes, right. So if you are in like a big time snow game or a big time rain game, as we know, rain leads to more points. Defenders slip down a little more. It's easier to kind of understand how to function your body on a wet field if you know where you're going, as opposed to being reactive. So that was something I liked. Like, cool, because it used to be, in the rain, you could still bomb it a bunch, no problem, and that's changed as well.
Brian
I know we got
Kelly
probably
is
a lot of
gonna
questions.
suck at this game.
Yeah, it's right, hanging right there. We call this the Brian Kelly patch that we put in the game to be able to make it so you can't throw it 45 times in a hurricane. What's the scoreboard look like? That's a question we're getting in the tailgate a lot. I guess that means the score bug as well.
It just looks.
Does it look like
I didn't know it's not the ESPN one as far as I know. I mean, I'm trying to remember what it looked like. I don't think it had branding on there.
Okay. And are all the announcing teams basically from ESPN?
No, Pollock's in there.
Oh, former ESPN.
Yes, former ESPN.
Got it.
Is he a studio analyst or is he calling games?
I believe he's calling games. It's Kevin. What's his name? Is a studio analyst.
Connors.
Gandhi?
No,
Kevin Connors.
Kevin Connors.
I think Kevin Connors. Yeah. Again, I mean, like they went through a lot of stuff in the presentation, and I took as many notes as I could. I did want to get to playing the game, which was obviously presentation was cool. Actually playing the game.
Stop talking, nerds. I want to play.
We appreciate you going and looking all that up. The game's going to be coming out in July. We are going to have more Cover 3 content now, both on the YouTube channel. Make sure you go and subscribe. And then, of course, on the podcast. If you think we're not going to be talking about this as we're playing it, as it's coming out, then you just don't listen to Cover 3 podcast in July. We'll do absolutely anything. No, seriously. Like, it's going to be a huge deal for fans. And we're very, very excited about it. Bud, thank you for the info. Coming up on the
no, if we have more questions for the chat, I don't mind taking them a little bit. Do we have more stuff to get to?
Let's see. I mean,
there's one guy who keeps asking if you were able to use Team Builder or get any info on it.
I was not able to use Team Builder. They only let us play the Play Now mode on that because Robbie Calland, I did not go on the Madden day, right? I went on the college football day because I had to work for a living. And like, I don't know, these college football writers going to play the Madden day. I was like, you guys are going? Like, yeah, like, damn, like I'm working, bro. But I guess Robbie messed it up somehow in the demo mode by going into the non-play now. So we were walking back in lunch. Like, remember, it is Play Now mode only during the demo.
That's my Robbie.
So yeah, I was like, that's great.
And then is it no high school in Road to Glory? You just go ahead and start out as a recruit?
Yeah.
That's
from what I had in my notes. Yeah.
In 2005, when I was creating Chip Patterson from Broughton High School, like, I guess that was fine. But as an adult, I don't need to play the high school games to try to go win the state title. I'm fine on that.